Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aurobindaya. In Search of the Mother welcomes all to its live interactive online session on human cycle by Sri Aurobindo. Gladly introducing our mentor and professor Kittu Reddy, fondly known as Kittu Da, who will guide us with his enriching knowledge and depth on this subject. Professor Kittu Reddy was born in the Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh on 1st July 1936. At the young age of 5 in 1941, he was taken to the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Pondicherry by his father Narayan Reddy, an eminent member of the Swaraj party formed by C.R. Das. He has lived there ever since. He had all his education at the Sri Aurobindo International Centre of Education, from where he graduated. He has been teaching at the same centre since 1958. His subjects today are the foundations of Indian culture, the human cycle, the ideal of human unity from all books of Sri Aurobindo, political science, social science and history. Since 1987, he has been giving talks to the Indian Army on Indian culture, the mission of India, and motivation and leadership. In 1994, he was appointed as advisor to the Army Welfare Education Society. Since then, he has been in close touch with the Indian Army and has conducted workshops for the Indian Army, Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force. These workshops deal with motivation, leadership, and the Indian nation. They have been held both in Pondicherry at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram and training centers of the armed forces. He is the author of the following books: A Vision of United India, Problems and Solutions; Kargil, a manifestation of a deeper problem and the history of India, a new approach. Over to you, Kittu Da.
I will first introduce the book, The Human Cycle. Now, this book was written in the year 1916, August 15 to 1918, 24 issues in the journal Arya, started by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Now, the original name of the book was The Psychology of Social Development. I do not know when he changed the name to The Human Cycle, but the Psychology of Social Development is almost exactly what he has done in the whole book. Now, when you go to the book, you will find the first sentence is very important. Modern science obsessed with its discoveries, etc., etc., and the belief in the sole existence of matter. Now, this is a very rationalistic point of view, which does not deny the existence of mind or other thing which we call psychology, but they say that all these things called mind or emotional reactions or everything are rooted in the physical and only in the physical. So they are all consequences of this world, right? And Sri Aurobindo does not agree with this at all. So in the very same paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph, he speaks of historians who try to say that the French Revolution was caused merely by external causes. I will explain this a little bit. If any of you have any question, you may ask right now, right, as it goes on. Now, all history books, or almost all history books, will tell you that the French Revolution took place because of political causes. That means power was shared by a very small number, and there was no what you call democracy in modern times. Secondly, economic causes. The poverty was enormous, the exploitation was enormous. Thirdly, they will tell you that probably the nature of the king and the queen, Marie Antoinette, and these are the three main causes. Right. Now the fact is that in other parts of Europe, things were worse. And therefore, if these were the main causes, surely the same revolution should have started in other parts. But that is where Sri Aurobindo comes in, and not Sri Aurobindo alone. There are quite a few modern historians who are looking at it. They say that the root cause was, or one of the root causes, along with all these, and one of the important causes, was the writings of Rousseau, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Diderot, and the so-called encyclopedists. What did they do? They threw in an idea, as Rousseau writes, man is born free, but soon finds himself in chains. He must break those chains. So what Sri Aurobindo is suggesting there very clearly is that it was the power of the idea. And once this idea became widespread, inevitably the revolution took place. Now this leads to a very important consequence, which you have to look at yourself. Every individual action, and therefore social action, because after all society is made up of individuals. First, every individual behavior, the first thing takes place in the psychology. The behavior is only a manifestation of that psychology. So for example, many human beings feel tempted when they see a woman, right? But if that temptation becomes strong, and if you continue thinking on those lines, it is inevitable that at a certain stage you will behave in a way which is not correct, right? So the root of all behavior is in the psychology. Therefore, if you want to change the behavior of human beings, individual or collective, the first thing is you have to change the psychology. So this is my first. It is only on this basis that the rest of the book can be understood. Right now there is psychology and psychology. There are all levels of psychology. Sri Aurobindo and the mother will call it levels of consciousness. The rationalist dismisses it as nonsense. What is consciousness? It cannot be proved, right? So this is the first step to understand that the inside determines the outside. And if you want to change the outside, of course external methods are useful, but ultimately it depends on the inner change that takes place. So first of all you must accept that there is something called an inner, matter is not the whole thing. There are many worlds, matter is only the tip of the iceberg. There are worlds below, subconscient, inconscient. There are worlds above, vital, mental, psychic, spiritual. There are worlds around, the inner man, right, etc., etc. If you are not aware of these, any hope of changing behavior and ultimately of changing the world will be futile. Now I would like to have a first question, if anybody has. Then the next thing is that we have to try to interpret history, human behavior, because human history is nothing else but human behavior in the past and analysis and interpretation, right? We have to try to see whether we can look at it from the psychological point of view. And that is where Sri Aurobindo says that the first effort was made in Germany by a scientist called Lamprecht, who gave 5 very important words, very suggestive words, which Sri Aurobindo has caught up and developed his whole theory on this basis. So these 5 words are symbolic, typal, conventional, individualistic and subjective. Now all these words, symbolic, typal, conventional, individualistic, subjective, refer to the mentality and the psychology, what you call nowadays in modern words the mindset, the symbolic mindset. Now Aurobindo explains in the third or fourth paragraph that most primitive societies and all religious institutions have got a very powerful symbolic mentality. You see, now when one is rational, I'll give you a practical example. I was sitting once with a foreigner, an American, in a car, and the car belonged to a devotee. He was driving, and in front of there were the photos of Mother and Aurobindo. And he asked them, why are you putting these photos there? He said, well, I believe that these photos represent a force, that they are a source of protection, etc., etc. And the rationalist friend mine, he said, it's all nonsense. All that you need to know is how to drive. And if you drive properly, all this is rubbish. Now whether this man believes in the force or knows that the force exists is very important, because many of us carry a blessing packet because we believe that it is a protecting force. Some of us have experienced that. Then we don't believe only, but we know. Right? So when you have the symbolic mentality, it is not necessarily knowledge, it is a kind of faith, it's a kind of intense trust, right? And that is the symbolic mentality. So Aurobindo says, symbolic but of what? So he says that you believe that behind all your actions, everything that you do, there is a force, there is a reality which is more important than the external thing, right? And these are very important words. Yeah. So now this is a very important factor to understand, because the whole of Indian culture, or almost the whole of Indian culture, is based on this inner perception. That behind the outer world in fact is a symbol of something inside, something deeper. For most people it is a faith and a trust. All these millions of people in India and all over the world who go to temples, churches, religious places, believe, have a lot of trust, might have had some experience. If you have had the experience even once, it is over. You have understood that it is true. But even those who don't have the experience, believe, and it's a very powerful help in the whole thing. So the question is, symbolic mentality simply means the rational mentality refuses to accept all these symbols. They might call it hallucination, they might call it fault ideas, right? So we in the ashram, all the disciples of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, all those who believe in God, in religion, they carry a talisman, something, right, which they believe and might be in some cases they know. So I will give you one little anecdote, which is a real thing. There was a gentleman called Dr. Beast, who used to attend on the mother in the last 2 or 3 years of her life. And one day mother was giving blessing packets. And then when his turn came, he asked mother, but mother, I don't believe in this blessing packet. What should I do? Mother said, if you don't believe, just don't bother. Right? This blessing packet is useful only to those who believe. But if you don't believe in the blessing packet, but if you believe in me, whether you have a blessing packet or not, it is always there, right? So I am always with you, but we need an external something which reminds us of her presence and of her action on us. That's why we pray. Now this is very widespread. It is combated by the purely rationalist mentality, which refuses to accept any other words. Now this being so, the next few paragraphs, he has given you 3 examples. 3 paragraphs in which there are examples. One is based on the word sacrifice. Sacrifice was a very important word in the Vedas. Every movement of the Vedas was always accompanied by a sacrifice, which was a physical act of lighting a fire and then pouring ghee and other things, chanting mantras. This was called a sacrifice. And if you look at it only from this external point of view, it is a very primitive movement. But Sri Aurobindo says that it has a deep symbolic sense. What is the symbolic sense? This word sacrifice in English has got 2 meanings. It is associated with the word sacred, and it is associated with the word of giving up. Sacrifice means you are giving up. Now we sacrifice a coconut or we sacrifice this, but in the spiritual way of looking at things, you will see that every step forward that you want to make, first thing that you have to do is to give up something. You have to sacrifice that something to the divine. You have to sacrifice your lower nature to your higher nature through which the divine will act. The moment you look at sacrifice from this point of view, you will realize that the Vedas is a very profound concept. It might be difficult to understand the mysticism, but Sri Aurobindo explained this in great detail in his book called The Secret of the Veda and Hymns to the Mystic Fire. It's a beautiful exploration, extremely uplifting. So the word sacrifice doesn't mean anymore just killing animals or giving this or giving that. That is a symbolic act of something much more deep and inward. It does not mean that you should give up the symbol, because that is the first step. But then from the symbol, the outer thing, you have to go to the inner thing. So this is one example that he has given. There is one big paragraph there where he has shown that the Chatur Varna, what he says, miscalled the caste system, right, is a very profound inner conception. Now, if you look at the caste system, or if you look at these 4 divisions and classes of society, you will find that in Europe also it was there, in the Western society, in India also it was there. It was usually an economic and functional division. So the Brahmins were the priests, they were the instructors, they were the teachers, they were the men of learning. To the Brahmins, the word which you find in the Western civilization was the church organization, which did more or less the same thing. Then there were the Kshatriyas in India, there were the fighters, there were the people who also stood up for the administration also. They had administrative qualities as well as the fighting qualities. This in Europe was known as the aristocracy. the lords, the dukes, the nobles. Then in India we had the Vaishya, who did the business, who did all the work which was connected with money and development, which was called in Europe the bourgeoisie. Then we had the fourth class in India, which was known as the Shudras, the workers, the menial chaps, etc., 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 which was known there as the serf. Now, if you look at it only from this point of view, you will find that it was a division according to economic functions. Right? And even today, if you look at the world honestly, you will see that there are people who belong to that level, thinking, analyzing, that is their strength, that is their nature. There are others who are the fighters. Everybody doesn't want to join the army because they're very uncomfortable. So it demands a certain makeup of the nature, and so on and so forth. Right? But Sri Aurobindo says that this was only the outer crust. There was something much deeper. And that something was the ethical content poured into the Chaturvarna and the spiritual content that was poured into the Chaturvarna. I'll explain. Every function, whether you are a teacher or a warrior, right, needs certain external knowledge. If I am going to teach French, I must know my language. I must be, if not master, at least well versed. Only then can I be a good teacher. But the Indian added that a Brahmin, a teacher, must have certain psychological, ethical qualities. Now these ethical qualities are extremely important. In the Ashram school, Mother says, and not once, many, many times, if you want to be a good teacher, you must be a yogi. Perfect self-knowledge, perfect self-control, perfect mastery over yourself, perfect knowledge of the subject which you are teaching, and a kind of tremendously equal attitude towards everybody. Today you look at the teachers, at least in certain parts of India, you will find that the teachers deliberately teach not so well in the classroom, so that they can have tendency called, what is it called? They come to their home and they pay money and they earn huge amounts of money by these classes outside. This is a totally un-Brahminic spirit. So India believed that not only for doing a function well must you have all the necessary qualities to train yourself in those qualities. A soldier and a warrior must know how to use his weapons, but he must also have certain psychological, ethical qualities, right? And so here defined, I think if you have got the book in front of you, you will find it in this first chapter, somewhat towards the end, where he speaks of the typal stage, social honor, right? And about the Shudra, he says, one who is disinterested service. Now if you look, Sri Ramakrishna has given a story where he explains this in a very interesting way. What he says is that in a rich family, who have got children, there is a little baby of 1 year. It is this Arya who looks after her. The mother comes, the father comes, but the Arya looks after her. And the Arya looks after that child as if it is her own daughter. She pours all her love on that. But actually her primary love is when she goes back home, where she has her own daughter. Right? Now this service that she is doing to the rich, right, is purely based on a disinterested service, selfless, but not attached, because they want another service. And I can tell you from my own experience, I am very fortunate that I have two maidservants who come and help us in our house. We treat them with utmost respect and kindness. I can keep 10,000 rupees on the table, not one pie will go. I can put money in my pocket and send it to the bathroom, forgetting they will come and return every pie. They are so honest, so loyal, so trustworthy. So what Sri Aurobindo says is that every action on these four castes must have, first of all, the qualities to teach or to fulfill that act. A businessman must be honest, must keep his accounts perfectly well. There must be a rectitude of dealing, as he calls it, right, etc., etc. So first of all, there has to be the qualities that you need to learn. Secondly, there has to be ethical qualities. First of all is the physical qualities, then is the ethical qualities. He goes one step further. He says, through this function of yours, by developing these ethical qualities, you can approach the divine. And depending on your nature, you will approach the divine in one aspect or the other. So the warrior, he is attracted to Mahakali. She is power and strength. The man of knowledge will probably be attracted to Maheshwari, the four aspects of the mother, right? And so on and so forth. So you see, there is no gradation that the Shudra is inferior. If the Shudra goes through his service toward the divine, he is superior to the Brahmin who is using his service only to make money. So you see, once it is understood in this way, you will find that the caste system is a very noble system as it was conceived, and might be for many years it was practiced also. Gradually there came a kind of degradation. When the son of a Brahmin had to become a Brahmin, his temperament was not taken into account, his nature was not taken into account, and that had to be broken. But that led to all kinds of perversions, twists, deformations, etc., etc. So this is essentially the symbolic mentality, right? And Mother has always said to us here that whatever work you do, whether in the business field, whether as a teacher, whether as a captain in the playground, whether as a gatekeeper, right, receiving guests, you need three qualities. The outer quality, a gatekeeper must be very patient, well behaved. He must know the language which the people speak there. Very often in the ashram you have gatekeepers who don't know a word of Tamil, and when they try to tell someone something, they use very poor language. It creates a lot of problems. So on the physical level you have to develop all those qualities. On the psychological level you have to be patient, understanding, not getting angry easily, extremely helpful, very polite, very courteous, and not artificially, must be genuine, because people feel it immediately. And thirdly, you can use that as a means by which you attain the divine. See, that is why all work in the ashram, I am just giving you the name of the ashram, but I think all work in the world, wherever you are, is a means of spiritual ascension, is a means of developing your ethical qualities, is a means of developing your physical qualities, the knowledge of what you are doing. Right? Once you understand in this way, you will realize that if you look at the caste system from the deeper symbolic mentality, it's a very noble and uplifting concept. But if you lose the spiritual sense, and then after some time you lose the ethical sense, then it becomes a complete deformation. So I think I will stop here, but I would now give you 5 minutes. If you have any questions, I'll answer them straight away. This is a very, very interesting question. See, the first thing that when you are doing it as an offering or a service to the divine is to look very carefully at oneself and see whether the ego is interfering or not. The two biggest enemies of spirituality is the ego and desire. As long as you have some element of the ego or a strong element of the ego, you will find that your offering, our offering, I am not speaking of you, all of us, is not perfect. So this is a process where little by little one has to get rid of ego, egoism, selfishness, looking at everything from one's point of view. And this is a very subjective feeling. This cannot be done by an external method. Because very often, and that is absolutely true in the political field, that one makes a program which is apparently meant to help hundreds and thousands of people, but the real motive behind is very selfish. So that analysis is something which you have to do very, very severely on yourself. So you have to be very severe with yourself, right? And that is why Aurobindo has got a beautiful aphorism where he says, examine thyself without pity. Examine yourself. Every time you find that the ego movement coming in, watch. It is not easy to get rid of it. And under provocation it is very difficult to get rid of it. Let us be honest about it, right? But the very fact that one has started on this line will give you a tremendous joy. Right? And that joy is the balancing factor against the struggle which all of us human beings have got of the lower nature and therefore of desires also. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Kittu Da,
Yeah.
To listen to you talk about what Sri Aurobindo wrote and your understanding of it is very uplifting. And how do we keep the feelings that we have when we listen to you talk and to Sri Aurobindo's words? How do we keep that all the time when we have to deal with other people that aren't trying to do their best?
Right, I'll give you an answer. The answer is like this. The first thing is that, exactly in other words, you must become conscious of all the different parts of your being. That is number one. That itself is a long period. It doesn't come so easily. Because one thing that is coming from the mind, actually it is coming from the vital. So, first of all, you must become conscious of these different parts, which means that you have to observe yourself at every step. This observation means standing back. This is a faculty which only the human being has got. I'll give you an example. I am getting angry. I would likely now to either speak out something very harsh and unpleasant or even go and beat. Before you do all that, if you watch yourself, you will find that there are two parts. One part says, oh my God, I am getting angry, and the other part says, no, don't, cool off. So this is an exercise that you have to do day in and day out. Constantly watch yourself. And if you are able to watch yourself, you will find that itself is difficult because we get so involved in our action that we cannot stand back. The very first step will help you to bring some kind of self-control. And when you are all alone by yourself, there is no problem at all. At least for one who has priors. But the moment you are with somebody else, well, there are lots of problems that come in. Because you are allowing those influences to enter into you. So you have to again stand back and not allow those influences to enter. Now this is I can send you the exercises which Mother has given. I can send them to you on the email. You can send it to all these people who are there, right? You'll find it is very useful.
That would be good to have. We'll look forward to that.
I didn't get your question.
I said that would be good to have. We will look forward to that, to those exercises.
I will send it to you, but I think we have to stop today because I've got some other work.
Thank you, Kittu. That was indeed an inspiring and informative session. We hope everyone found the session informative and inspiring too. Feel free to drop in your feedbacks and queries to auroelearning@insearchofthemother.org. Thank you.